After much criticism for not being available to constituents, Senator Cory Gardner held 3 in-person town halls this week. Held in Colorado Springs, Lakewood, and Greeley, Gardner addressed everything from his votes on health care to President Trump's handling of North Korea and his thoughts on the recent violence in Charlottesville. David, even though Cory Gardner got booed down at these different town hall events, you see some of the coverage, it looks like a pretty fierce situation. It looked like a win for me, because if he's saying, maybe he avoided some town halls and saying, well, they're really not going to be productive conversations. He finally has them, and it's not a productive conversation because people just keep shouting him down. He can say, I've tried and I proved my point. Am I off here?
No, you're exactly right. And Kyle Clark from Channel 9 has been, talking a lot about how Gardner should do town halls. And as Clark said, after the behavior of the mob, sort of a softer version of that, the larger fascist movement, he said he regretted having put all that pressure on Gardner to do it, because the people who showed up at that, it's fine to go to a town hall, you ask a question, you don't like the answer the person gives, and then you can boo or applaud or whatever, and then move on to the next question. But that wasn't the behavior of so many people there. It was the mob. It was people who don't want to hear. It's rather than listening and agreeing or disagreeing, they just wanted to express their hatred and their anger. They're part of the problem.
Greg, Gardner definitely took his licks at all the different town halls, but he also let his critics see what a mob looks like and see what the reaction is. So, if people are questioning should he do town halls again, he goes, well, he can point that as pretty good reason not to. Do you think Gardner walked away with a success this week?
I do, but I'm a Cory Gardner fan. I think his politics are moderate, along the lines of myself, and I think he takes grief from people of the far left and the far right. Being on talk radio, you can't believe the vitriol he gets from people on the right, that he's not far right enough, he's too establishment. Then people on the left are upset that he wants to repeal Obamacare. Well, Obamacare is collapsing. Look around. So I think it was a perfect illustration. He held 3 town halls. People were shouting over him, and he dealt with it. He kept talking, and he had good spirits. We already talked about how he was a leader calling out President Trump, and he got up in Yuma, Colorado at 7:30 in the morning, was on CNN, State of the Union, and he made me proud as a Colorado constituent. He's well-spoken, and he's not a flamethrower, and I'm proud that he represents this great state.
Mary, Senator Gardner took a lot of criticism for not doing any town halls until now. He does 3 in one day, seemed like a real big barnstorming tour. If they were pretty calm events, I could see people being pretty cynical about it. Well, yeah, he did town halls, he just did 1 day of it. But because of the reaction, I don't know if he's getting more points in the future. What's your take on the long-term reaction to what we saw with those 3 town halls?
Well, I think we need to be fair to the people who came out to the town halls. They're participating in democracy. They're angry. And, Cory Gardner seemed like he handled it well. Well, that's great. That's his job. So more power to him, but also more power to the protesters. They're making their voices heard. They're frustrated that when they call, whether it's Gardner's office or the other elected officials, that they are not necessarily getting responses. And they're making their voices heard. We should be praising the fact that large crowds are coming out to participate in our democracy. It's a shame if sometimes that goes overboard, but these are heated times. Cory Gardner is part of this system that has created the divisions that have led to things becoming so heated. So, maybe it wouldn't have become so heated if he'd been holding more town halls more frequently. Things would have died down, and if he continues doing these, I would very well predict that the tone will get much more civil, and maybe some productive discussions can actually happen, which is the point of all this, after all, isn't it? A
productive political discussion. You are an optimist, Mary. I like that. Ed, you have been covering politics in Colorado for a long time. I imagine these town halls may stoke a memory or two of other town halls that look like this, maybe, I don't know, about 7 years ago or so. Do you think we're going to see politicians like Senator Cory Gardner put themselves out for these kinds of ruckus in town halls? I guess ruckus is disguised as town halls, or they use this reaction as an excuse to not do them anymore?
Well, I think one thing you can look at, first of all, is in reaction to the 2010 town halls, we're talking about, Cory Gardner, we've talked about Mike Kaufman, we're talking about all the Republicans and how they deal with these town halls. We're not talking about the Democrats because I'm not seeing those town halls happen. So I think people who have been through this once are already gun shy to go back and do it again. And I think people who are going through it now are going to be gun shy in the future. Look, I mean, let's just look at our conversation at this table. We've been talking more about the reaction from the crowds at the town hall than the actual issues that were there. I mean, I think people who go to the town halls and shout down Cory Gardner ought to notice that. There were some good salient points that were brought up at these, and had they been brought up in ways where someone could express, Senator, I'm disappointed in this, could you explain this to me, as some people did, without someone in the audience yelling, you suck, or swearing at him, we might actually be talking about Cory Gardner's positions on them. But as long as you see this, I think both sides are going to shy away from this in the future, and we're going to see a lot less of these.